You are watching the National Entertainment Network.
Good evening, I am Alicia Petal, and this is State of the Union, where each week we invite a guest to present their perspective on various subjects as it relates to the current state of the Union. This week we have traveled to Southern Ohio to speak with Dr. William Carver, a professor of constitutional law and political sciences at Van Elder University. Van Elder University was founded in 1864, and primarily opened to freed slaves, who are eager to enjoy their freedom by acclimating themselves to the new world around them through education. There were no admission costs, with books and school needs provided free. This policy has remained in place to this very day. Van Elder University has purposely remained under the radar to such a degree they do not have a presences on the internet in any fashion. Unsolicited applications are not acknowledged, with students only accepted via invitation. It was made quite plain to me that I must emphasize Van Elder is not a black university, but a people's university that sees no difference in race, color, or religion as a factor in admission. Van Elder University was founded by Artemus Van Elder, whose mother was a house slave on one of the largest Georgian plantations from 1795 to 1825. His father, Colonel Rupert Worthington, was the plantation owner and had over 80 slaves on that plantation. Artemus's slave name was John, but his mother, Sarah, secretly named Artemus after her previous owner who had treated slaves with a great kindness and understanding. That plantation owner was murdered along with his entire family in 1795. The slaves on that plantation were divided between the 3 adjacent plantations, as was the plantation itself. There was never any investigation into those murders. Emma Worthington, the colonel's wife, had taught Artemus' mother to read, and by the time she was 15 years old was quite well read and displaying a heightened intellect. Sadly, that intellect was not appreciated by the colonel, and to Emma Worthington's horror started the colonel abusing Sarah in every way imaginable and to do nothing more than breaking her will. When Artemus was born, he was raised as a slave and worked the fields of the plantation until his escape, at the age of 22, along with his mother Sarah in 1825 with the help of Colonel Worthington's wife Emma. Emma openly abhorred slavery, and was diametrically opposed to the colonel's use of human beings as slaves. Emma was found dead of a reported horse riding accident 2 days after Artemus and his mother escaped. 1 week later, the colonel committed suicide by a single gunshot. Artemus Van Elder, once in a free environment and interacting with individuals outside of the world of slavery, saw that the innate human intellect is what a human being must be judged on, and certainly not the color of one's skin. He understood that judgments made were based on a stereotypical association that a black skin meant an uneducated slave lacking in mental acuity. Over the next 40 years, Artemus educated himself, and associating with those who shared his view that using the color of one's skin to judge a human being, white or black, would not permit the full integration of a full society. At the age of 61 years old, Artemus, along with the help of many like-minded individuals, formed the Van Elder University, with the primary goal of never using the color of anyone's skin to judge them as a human being, or to see them as any different than just another human being. Van Elder University has held true to that belief, and as a constitutional law school fighting against any societal effort to segregate any race or culture. It is extremely appalled at the use of race baiting for political gain or leverage by any political party or organization. Dr. Carver has been with Van Elder for over 30 years, not only a professor but the university's vice president, and holds a seat on the university's board of trustees. Dr. Carver, Thank you for taking the time to speak with us this evening.
Thank you, Alicia. It is my pleasure. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you on these issues. And thank you for your very accurate portrayal of our history at Van Elder. We are quite proud of our work here, and extremely proud of our rather notable alumni, both past and present. Van Elder University is primarily a law school focusing on constitutional law. We are proud to say that our graduates tend to be more devoted to their profession than they are in gaining notoriety. Before we continue, I would like to ask a question of our viewing audience. Will you continue to watch this video because I am a black man, and assuming what my commentary will be? If so, I wish that was not the case. I would rather you watch because I am a fellow human being and nothing more. However, to those who will not watch the video because I am a black man, I would say, I wish that was not the case. I would much rather you not watch because I am a fellow human being and you could care less on what my commentary will be.
Dr. Carver, let me start with what I am sure our viewers are thinking. Why do you feel qualified to give a commentary on the State of the Union?
I can easily answer that. I believe that every citizen should be able to have a State of the Union opinion, and be able to openly air that opinion. However, a reasonable person would have to agree that any opinion should be formulated on factual data, not based on emotion or political falsehoods and propaganda.
That brings up my next question. What is your appraisal of the quality of information being provided to the average citizen?
As in many countries, the media is in full control of what information we as average citizens primarily learn on what is taking place in our nation. With the advent of 24/7 news cycles, news reporting became an entertainment commodity in full competition with other media agencies. To attract an audience, these agencies needed to generate news to fit a desired audience demographic. It became quite apparent to these news agencies that to ensure a viewership they needed to virtually generate news rather than simply report the news. The bias that developed within these media organizations was mostly founded on the perception of what the audience wanted, and sadly not necessarily the full and honest news one would expect.
Dr. Carver, how do you see the current general state of the Union?
Now, before I proceed, please understand that I do not, nor does Van Elder University, support any past or present candidate, whether Obama, Trump, Biden, or any beyond. However, I do support political policies and actions that are truly beneficial to the citizens of this country, not to the dominant control and desires of any political party. In the study of both historical and current political activities, it is apparent that we are currently going through an unprecedented political and social upheaval of major proportion, with neither going in a positive direction. A political party that once appeared to be an ally to the people has now, over the years, morphed into the party of control and manipulation. Their lies and false accusations, which have been so heinous in scope, bordering oft times on treasonous behavior, gladly many of these lies have now been openly exposed as such. However, the legacy media embraced and reported these falsehoods as factual news, yet when the lies were completely debunked they reported nothing. The media is quite complicit in the damage the country is now experiencing. So, to generalize, I see the state of our union as one that is in trouble.
How do you see the racial divide that seemingly has developed in recent years?
The issue of race, particularly involving the horrors of slavery, has hung over this country for hundreds of years, with racism being at the forefront of our societal growth as a unified people. Racism continues to be a major issue in this country. The reason it does is not because of the racist. Racist accusations and name-calling has become a weapon of a current-day political party. Race baiting and racist accusations are openly used to denigrate anyone who disagrees with virtually any action put forth. What these typically unwarranted racist allegations do is nothing more than perpetuate racism and promote segregation. As we moved into the late 70s and into the 80s, measures were instituted to help integrate the black community into the workplace. These actions provided some benefits to that goal, but there were also drawbacks to such actions, much of which dealt with the perception of expectations in what was viewed as the white work world. In any case, as we moved forward from that period of time, we made great strides in race relations, the country from the 50s to 2008 found its way to drastically shedding the racial divide to such a degree that the United States elected its first black president, Barack Hussein Obama, and done so with hopes of pulling this country culturally even closer together. The future was viewed with great optimism.
What happened to that great optimism?
I sincerely wish I could say that is what happened. Tragically, rather than further promote integration, Obama seemed to favor segregation. Actions and comments were made that ultimately had many black university students demanding segregated dorms. Black activism was reignited, and rather than racial walls being torn down, they were re-erected. There are many in the black community that questioned his actions. It seemed so contrary to the goal of bringing us together through cultural integration and not segregation in any form. Obama on many occasions with various comments and actions seemed almost anti-American in his demeanor. It was obvious Obama was carrying a racial bias that would not be pulling the country together but rather racially pulling the country apart.
What changed as we moved forward?
In retrospect, there are many who now contend that Obama's behavior was the catalyst for Donald Trump's presidential run. There are also those who point to Obama's public denigration of Trump during the White House Correspondents' Dinner in April of 2011 that put Trump's presidential run in motion, which he started unofficially in 2012. Obama's performance and the Democratic Party actions over their 8-year reign failed to such a degree that it could not get Hillary Clinton, the first woman president, elected. Donald Trump was given the presidency to the great embarrassment of virtually every mainstream media outlet, which continually attacked and diminished him to be nothing more than a joke. Trump's presidency was under attack from day one, with many vowing to impeach and destroy him. The media's embarrassment was palpable. Regardless of his policies and action successes, the media refused to cover them, or they would manipulate the facts of his successes into failures. The most egregious outcome of the media's ongoing attack on Trump is their source of false assault subjects, which was our very own government agencies. The net effect drove a deep social wedge within our country, a wedge damaging racial relations, law enforcement, and in reality the very sovereignty of this country. In reality, regardless of what you think of Trump, within just 4 years he did more for all races and religions in this country than any previous administration had in decades, and done so while under constant attack from many sources. I say this not as a supporter of Trump but as a supporter of actions and policies that truly benefit our country.
What are your thoughts on the current administration?
The COVID pandemic ushered in questionable changes to the voting process, which arguably caused grave concerns as to the legitimacy of the election results. But Biden won, and literally on day one started to reverse any and all successes reached by Trump. The media supported and applauded these efforts that now gave them the opportunity to reap revenge on Trump and his presidency. Which brings us to today. Our State of the Union is by all accounts far from being good. The reversal of so many of Trump's policies done solely for political reasons, and done so without any thought to the damage these actions would bring to the country. The use of race baiting and racist accusations has once again reignited divisions in this country that were once closed, or at least closing. Using the color of one's skin for political leverage will never enable an integrated path to seeing a person simply as another human being. If I may, please let me repeat that. Make no mistake, using the color of one's skin in identifying the worth of a human being will never permit a fully integrated society. It will, however, continue to promote the political use of racist accusations in attacking the opposition. Unencumbered illegal immigration into any country is a critical concern. The volume of people from well over 100 different countries now entering our southern border is a prime example of a Trump policy reversal that has so negatively impacted our country. In our world today, there are many countries with a corrupt totalitarian government, people in absolute poverty, and those in tragic living conditions, all a horrifying reality for hundreds of millions throughout the world. The reality is the United States cannot fix these problems. As free and as caring of a country that we are, it is not a feasible endeavor to take an entire suffering country in, a sad but true reality. We cannot take in the population of entire countries regardless of our charitable nature. The border must be secured, and a legal immigration policy that welcomes those who want to become responsible citizens of the United States must be in place. A policy welcoming 1 million immigrants annually is in force today. The unvetted illegal immigrant is now being given an open door to this country that has already, and will in the future, have an extreme detrimental impact on this country. The country now finds itself in a serious inflationary spiral, and without much investigation one can easily identify the source of the problem. First and foremost was Biden's preemptive strike at our country's oil supply production based on the hope that a technically viable alternative fuel will emerge. In today's world, the general populace really has little idea of what it means to go fully electric. Sadly, technically we are not there yet. The preemptive assault on oil was done by an administration not to benefit the country, but to please the climate change enthusiasts. The raise in the price of oil because of that action had an immediate effect on virtually every product and service and causing prices to skyrocket. Then with the poorly handled COVID crisis which pumped billions of dollars into an already inflationary economy that so dramatically affected the working middle class. Then to add to this financial meltdown, college loan debt is being forgiven. I will concede that for those borrowers of that money it is great news. But the damage it does to those who have not gone to college is considerable, not to mention those who worked so hard in the past to get that debt paid off. It is without doubt an unconstitutional act to allocate funds for debt forgiveness earmarked for a very specific group of people. An issue that is becoming quite serious and causing more than a fair amount of a cultural issue in the country today that is generally referred to as woke. I am personally confused by nomenclature, but also alarmed at the influence it is having on virtually every aspect of society. Not to oversimplify the meaning, but the best I can glean from it is an issue with the sexual identification. Now when I see a nominee for a Supreme Court justice who apparently is so entrenched in a woke mindset they cannot tell the difference between a physical male or female, it is quite concerning. A government that is undertaking the changing of the use pronouns is not a government for the people, it is now controlling people. The people of this country are free to speak any way they wish, and the government should never usurp that constitutional right. We are a country in trouble because we are being divided by a political party that panders to various factions of our society to do nothing more than to garner votes. By placating to these various segregated groups they form a pocket of support through that election cycle, and after every election the promises made to gain that support is never kept. However, those same promises will be hauled out for the next election period. The residue of these political tactics is the social segregation they have caused in the process.
What can be done to alter the direction the country is now going?
First and foremost, an administration must be put in place that will do what is right for the citizens of this country. On the surface I understand that my response seems far too simplistic, but any administration that puts its party's control above the people of the country can never serve the people's rights and freedoms. To reverse well-working policies of a previous administration solely for political reasons is not only horribly failing the people of this country, but may be an act in violation of protections outlined in the Constitution.
In closing, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I am extremely concerned that the hatred and negativity against the United States that is growing and being flamed by our current administration and then transmitted by so many aspects of the media. All countries have a past they are not proud of, as we have had in building this magnificent republic. We must move forward, our past horrors of growth must not be forgotten, but never used as a political ploy. What is destroying our country today? Simply stated, it is politics. If we do not pull together as a people sooner rather than later, I am concerned our democracy is in jeopardy.
Dr. Carver, thank you so much for sharing your insights and thoughts with us. And thank you to those joining us this evening. For State of the Union, this is Alicia Petal. Good night.